Austin Tech Connect is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council. Founded in 1992, ATC exists to help unite the local technology ecosystem and to encourage the spread of community, collaboration, and conversations in Central Texas. This podcast is sponsored by SailPoint. They are a leading provider of identity security for the modern enterprise, empowering organizations worldwide to put identity security at the core of their business. With a foundation of artificial intelligence and machine learning, SailPoint Identity Security delivers the right access to the right identities and resources at the right time. Now, here is this week's episode.
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Austin Tech Connect. This is the official podcast of the Austin Technology Council, and my name is Thom Singer. I have been hosting this show for about a year and a half, and I've been with ATC for just over 2 years. And I was hired to kind of reinvent it, to shake it up. I tell people that we're a 32-year-old nonprofit startup because we are looking at what to do for the next 10 years. Our goal is to celebrate the past, be present in the now, and then look to the future of Austin and our tech ecosystem. And every week on this podcast, I try to bring a different set of interviews, people who are doing different things in the community, so that we can get a gist of the who's who of Austin and what we're doing well and maybe where we need to go in the future. And today I am excited because we are joined by Karen Gordon, and she is the CEO of Amplify, powered by 5 Dynamics. Hey, Karen, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tom. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you, and I'm glad to finally connect with you. For those of you who don't know Karen or her company, their job is they harness the power of differences. They help people harness differences to amplify outcomes. They like to look at people as individuals. They like to look at how they work, and then they leverage those differences. They help people collaborate. They help people work through conflict. And they work to make sure that every single person in a company is respected. Now, Karen is a serial entrepreneur. She's done everything from having a karate studio, an aerobics studio, to a telecom and data company that was amongst one of the fastest growing companies on the Inc. 500. She's been an executive coach, she's been in real estate, and now she is growing this company. And we're going to learn a little bit more about her journey and about this organization. So, Karen, let's talk about your journey. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine to the early days of your career, maybe soon out of college. What were you doing, and how did you get bitten by this entrepreneurial bug?
Well, I finished a degree in French with a minor in business, and I found that I was perfectly equipped to do nothing. I delivered pizzas for Domino Pizza. As I looked for a job, I did all kinds of odd jobs, selling Kirby vacuum cleaners. Just anything, really. And I realized quickly that I needed to find something that would allow me to grow. And my first entrepreneurial venture was I created the karate and aerobics studio. Wasn't as successful as some of my later ventures, but it was a great place to learn for sure. And I ended up going back to school, getting a master's in English and technical writing, went from there to working in telecommunications as a technical writer, eventually a technical trainer, which then led to me starting my telecom and data company that I had for 16 years.
Wow, that's kind of a long run. Let's talk a little bit about that company. You said it had in 1 year, like I forget the actual number, but it was like 1,100% growth. That's a lot of growth. So let's talk about that company and how you got into the tech world.
Yeah, it was something that I did as an individual first, and I decided that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom, and that lasted about 6 months before Nortel Networks was calling me and saying, "Hey, we need you to come back and teach this class. Would you do this one class?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, okay. I want to put my son in private school, so I'll go teach the class," or whatever it might have been. And that just led to another opportunity and another opportunity. And it grew from just me to 50 employees within 3 years time frame because they, of the background in telecom with technical writing and technical training. And so those were the areas that we began the company in. But then we also added RF engineering. So we would work with cellular companies to go out and brought in RF engineers to go out and look at the footprints and how do we, where do we put the base stations and all of those things. And so did that for a long time.
So it's interesting because, when you talked about how you started, like, hey, I got out of college and I had to, deliver pizzas. I had to sell vacuums. I had to do all this stuff. How do odd jobs like that for, people who might be not, found their way yet? How do working those jobs and being scrappy, how does that help you when you take that jump to being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's just a matter of giving you lots of experience. I mean, obviously, sales experience at both of those places. Knocking on doors, that's a pretty tough way to make a living, especially when people are, watching the evening news and they don't want a Kirby vacuum cleaner salesperson coming to their door.
What?
So you learn about working. Yeah.
People don't want a vacuum cleaner salesman at dinner time?
Right. So you learn about, how do you connect with others? How do you work with others? How do you get the deal across? And I think that my energies, if I look at my 5 dynamics energies, I'm what we call high explore, high execute. So big picture thinker and lots of action. So when I have ideas, I immediately want to put those into action. And that's just been a common theme for me. And it's the way that my brain is wired, because that's what we're measuring. We have an assessment as the cornerstone of our methodology. And in 3 minutes or less, we can tell you how anyone prefers to work, learn, and collaborate. And so for me, I go from idea to action, but I miss a couple of really important phases of getting things done. I don't necessarily get other people on board with what I'm doing without awareness, nor do I have a detailed plan so others can help me to execute on that plan. And so that's what we're teaching others. And I was so drawn to this methodology because of my first venture. I was in my 20s when I started GTCI, the telecom and data company, and I knew nothing. I had never been a first line manager. And the people part of leading a business was the hardest part for me. Getting the work was easy. Getting the sales was easy. I could literally walk from one end of the hallway to the next and get $1 million in deals. I mean, it was just crazy. But I didn't know how to manage people, so I burned people out. It was a frustrating environment, I'll be the first one to admit. And when I ran across this methodology, when I met the core creator of the methodology, Mike Sturm, I was so drawn to it because it answered in 3 minutes or less why I was having problems, what I needed to do differently, where I needed to slow down, where I needed to have others and listen to their opinions and not just think that everybody works like I work, because that's the natural tendency.
Yeah, well, that's something, I mean, the best leaders realize that they have strengths and they have weaknesses. And when they can celebrate their strengths and celebrate their weaknesses and get other people to take care of the weaknesses, I think that's where a leader really, really shines. So what's the biggest difference in Karen, the CEO today versus Karen, the CEO back then?
I'm a lot more comfortable with conflict. Matter of fact, I was reading an article by HBR this morning that was talking about what makes genius teams. And the number one finding was that it's teams that have a lot of healthy conflict, teams that are willing to kind of lean into that. So when you have this diverse group of humans around the room, it's just being willing to listen to their opinions and to be okay if your opinion doesn't match with theirs and to just work through that. And when I was, in my 20s and my 30s, I avoided conflict. I didn't want to have to deal with it. I just wanted it to go away. And now I realize that it's a healthy part of running a business. I
love the term that you used, healthy conflict, because I think for a lot of us who are conflict averse, and I'm like you are, it's like, I don't want to do that. I do find that when I'm able to have one of those discussions that are still respectful, but where you can both kind of go to the mat, everybody kind of wins in the long run. But the key is keeping that healthy part or that respectful part, right?
Right. And it's not about abusing your employees. It's about just being willing to go to the mat, to have that conversation.
Sure. So let's talk about the current company. Let's talk about Simplify, powered by 5 Dynamics. So how did it get started? How did you found it? What did you do? And then let's talk about where we are today.
I met the creator of the methodology. He was a learning diagnostician and a social psychologist. He had a Gestalt background, and he wasn't interested in corporate America at all. He was interested in education. He was interested in getting students unstuck. And so what he did was that he recognized when he was teaching through the industrial model of education, which was certainly at the forefront back when he was leading education within the state of Maine, he recognized that he was leaving students behind. And he was teaching students who'd been labeled as learning disabled. And what Mike liked to say is that he was teaching disabled because he wasn't teaching to their higher energies. And because of that Gestalt background and understanding the cycle of experience, what he looked at is where do they move smoothly in the process of learning versus where do they get hung up? And if he taught to their higher energies, they improved by 3 grade levels in a 9-month time frame. And so Mike spent his entire life developing this tool to help understand how to get people unstuck, how to unlock their potential. But he wasn't able to create a successful business around it because it just wasn't where his passion was. And when I met Mike, he really helped to unlock my leadership potential within GTCI. And then about that time, 2008 came. Nortel was my biggest customer, went from doing $1 million a month with them to zero overnight because they went bankrupt. So that's certainly a lesson in resilience, right? And because I had been so drawn to this methodology and was passionate about it, I chose to move forward with building this business.
So before we go forward with that, I just want to touch on it because it's happened to so many of us in business. Your biggest customer goes out of business or goes away for another reason. What was that like?
Well, it's certainly jarring, but luckily, we had been careful about cash. We were able to kind of continue to hotbowl along for a short amount of time, giving employees enough time to find other opportunities. And I knew that I didn't want to just move our headquarters to China or India, which was what the big push was in that time frame, just trying to cut costs. I knew that's what I didn't want for my life. I had young children. We have 4 children. And they were all, elementary, middle, high school. And there was no way I was going to spend half my life on a plane going between here and China. And so I just looked at what is it that I am passionate about? Where have I found something that I felt like the world really needed? And also when I was at GTCI, I was doing a lot of volunteer work, earning millions of dollars for various nonprofits, whether it was through a school district or animal rescue or children's causes. And it was because I was trying to fill that need of doing good in the world at the same time of the need of building entrepreneurial businesses. And with this company, it is a blend of both because we unlock teams, we unlock people, and I'm talking about at the highest levels as well. I mean, the majority of our customers are enterprise customers, 1,000 employees or more. And it's really interesting. You go into these high-performing organizations and you think that people are going to be working together well on the executive teams, and that's just not the case. And so it's so rewarding when we can help unlock what's going on and realize it's not about personality. It's not that I don't like you. It is that I think differently than you and I see different things than you. And when I speak, you need to listen. And when you speak, I need to listen.
Nice. And I love that part about it, being able to combine the desire of growing a business and the desire of doing good in the world. I think that that's something we sort of need to hang on to in the business world is how are you giving back either directly, or indirectly through the products and services that you do. I think when we can remember that that's why we get out of bed, that's people's why is let's make a difference in people's lives. I think everybody wins. It's interesting because you talked about that you got this technology or this methodology from this gentleman who invented it and that he didn't really have the desire, the bailiwick, the want to actually build a corporation around it. His cause was to be able to help people learn, find out what's holding them back and unleash them. And then you were able to take that and now turn it into this successful business. It's fascinating because last week's episode of this podcast, I sat down with Admiral Bobby Inman and we talked about everything under the sun, Austin, for the last 40 plus years. And one of the things we talked about as we look to the future, I said, what's important? And he said, the most important thing that we haven't gotten right is tech transfer. It's being able to take a methodology, a piece of technology, a hardware out of the academic world and be able to quickly and efficiently get it into the hands of somebody who wants to be the entrepreneur. Because he said sort of the same thing you did, is not everybody who is inventing a technology or a methodology or whatever it is has the desire or the skill set to turn it into a company, and that we need to do more of that. So tell me about how that worked out. How did you get to the spot where you took the methodology and founded the company?
Well, it was a 3-year journey, honestly. I was a distributor for the methodology first and knew that I wanted to buy the IP. I wanted to be in control of it because I knew that there were shortcomings with what Mike was trying to do. And the very first person that was interested and positive, the first presentation that I ever did, Mike McAllister was sitting in the room. It was a group of people that were on a board. Mike was the CEO of Humana at the time. And after the presentation, Mike came up and he said, I love this and I want to bring it into Humana. And I was like, okay, we're on to something. There is a there. Like I felt it, but that validated it for me.
So let's talk about what type of customers, who's the perfect customer for you? And then what do you actually, I get the gist, but what do you do when someone hires you? What is the product and service exactly that you're offering?
Well, it's a SaaS platform is predominantly what we sell. We sell services to support the usage of the SaaS platform and help people to understand how to build it into various applications. As far as the ideal customer, one of the big challenges that we've had is that anyone who works with people is an ideal customer. But we've needed to really focus kind of on our hands-on portion around our enterprise customers, which are 1,000 employees or more. But we've created a self-service version for smaller teams. So they're able to purchase access to our software platform. They're able to have learning experiences. They have resources that are available to them, and they can use that, and there's a lot of value there. With the enterprise customers, the reason that's really our target market is because they build our methodology into their onboarding. They build it into their conflict resolution program. They build it into their leadership development program. And so they're using it in an ongoing way, and which of course is what you want with any SaaS businesses. So the initial aha is great. It's been a blessing and a curse. People love it from the get-go, but it's that ongoing usage is really where the value is. And if you think about any great methodology, you can describe it in a short amount of time, write it on the back of a napkin, but it takes years to perfect. And that's really what our methodology is all about. It's like there's this initial wonderful moment, but then it's those ongoing ahas that are where the true value is.
No, and I love the fact that it focuses on each individual person. This is, if they do it right, it's not sort of one size fits all. It's and what you said earlier about I need to listen to you and you need to listen to me. Give me a little bit of the secret sauce of what people get when they're working with your methodology and putting it into their onboarding and conflict resolution. I mean, what's the outcome?
Well, in the platform itself, there's information about each individual. So you take 3 minutes, you take our core assessment, and then you receive information about how you work, learn, and collaborate. That's the first layer. Then there is customized leadership content. So it's not about, the same advice. I wouldn't get the same advice that you get because we have different energies. I can tell just from this short conversation. and so the leadership advice that I get is around my blind spots or my strengths. Where do I index too heavily? When do I need to back off that high execute? When do I need to stop exploring and move forward? For you, I'm guessing high excite is one of your energies in it. So how does that show up in leadership? And so customized advice from leadership perspective as well as individual awareness. Then it's information about the two of us. So any person that I work with, if I'm having an issue, I can pull up a peer report and look at the two of us working together. And again, customized advice based off of your energies and mine about what's probably going wrong and what we can do about it. The third level is around teams. And again, all of this is in the software. So I can look at any given team and see how that team is working, where they lean in, where they over-index, where they under-index. Oftentimes managers hire people who are just like them because it feels really good and comfortable, but you want people who are different than you, and you need to respect those opinions. And so maybe you're the sole high examine on a team of high excites and high executes, right? And so, you've probably been frustrated because you're telling them, hey, this is a good idea, but you're going to go off a cliff if you don't do X, Y, and Z. And no one's listening because they all feel so good about X, Y, and Z, right? And so, it's that advice in the moment. And then after the software, then there's also training programs. There's certification around it. There's resources that are available. There's videos. And so there's a whole suite of products that support understanding and using that methodology.
And how long has this company been operating in the format that you've had it in?
Well, 14 years is when I founded the company, 14 years ago. All new software in 2018. We're continuing to add new software. We're excited. We just signed a partnership agreement with UKG, and they're just a little company with 90,000 customers. And so we're focused in their UKG Pro, which is for their enterprise customers, because again, that's where our focus is. And so it's blending workforce intelligence with human intelligence. And we're excited about being able to reach so many more people.
So how many employees do you have now, and how many of those are in the Austin area?
Well, my first company, again, we grew very quickly, and sometimes I had to hire 13 people in a week, and it was just crazy. And by design, I chose to have a SaaS business where you don't need to hire a human every time you get more work, because we were in services before. And that's why I said we're predominantly software with services to support. So we're a small, scrappy team. We've got about a dozen people that work in California, New York, Texas, Louisiana. So we've been 100% remote from the very beginning. And my first company that started in the late 1990s was also 100% remote. So, this whole COVID era of going remote, we're like, oh, that's a Tuesday,
I was gonna say you're a trendsetter, or you're ahead of your time, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, well, we definitely were in that regard. And the other thing that we were ahead of our time on, again, late 90s, is that we hired a workforce that had been untapped and we gave them total flexibility. And so what it was women like myself who had been in the workforce. They were highly educated, well-trained in certain subject matter expertise, and they chose to be at home with their kids when they sent them to school or when they came home in the afternoons. And I hired them and I said, I don't care if you work from midnight to 8 a.m. as long as your job is done on time with high quality. And so I know that way of working, it works. But what you have to do as a manager is be very intentional about setting expectations, about communicating and having goals and making sure everyone's singing off the same sheet of music. And if you really look at who doesn't like remote work, it's those managers who have been able to manage by walking into your office or meeting you in the break room.
Sure. And you actually answered the next question I was going to ask, but I'm going to push to go a little deeper. What has been the most effective part about being fully remote and being able to hire these people who may not fit into the 9-to-5 juggernaut because of family or other things? What's been the win from all this?
I think it's just a matter of a mutual commitment. So if you're committed and the employee is committed to doing good work and creating great things together, I think that's got to be at the core. Trust absolutely has to be at the core. I have to trust that I've hired the right people and that they're going to do a great job. And then I have to understand the unique humans in front of me, whether it's from an energetic perspective, so the 5 dynamics, which is, awesome that we have that because we understand each other at a deeper level, but also that, Ashley has a toddler and Ashley has to take care of that toddler, but she will work whenever she needs to work to get the product out and meet her goals. So.
Nice. So what's the future? What is, if you have a crystal ball, where does the company go from here?
Well, we continue to create the software in such a way that it's easy for people to access and easy for them to understand. We've always had great content, but with AI now we're able to, that's kind of our next evolution, is that we're able to call upon that content to give advice. So instead of you having to search for it, you can basically just ask the question. Hey, Tom and I just came out of a meeting and it didn't go so well. What can I do differently next time? And so it will give you the answer to that. Nice. In the moment when you're having the problem.
Nice. So you've lived in Austin for 8 years. Why Austin? What made you come here? I mean, the company had already been up and running for, if I do the math correctly, 6 years. Why did you decide, hey, we're remote, I can live anywhere. Let's pack up and go?
Well, honestly, without giving too many details on this one, we were going to merge with another company. It's another company that's owned by someone who is very well known in the Austin area, has done an incredible job of building businesses. And we had companies that were comparable and, felt like it was going to be a good fit. And it ended up not being the right fit for us for a couple of different reasons. And I had already moved there because it was like starting a new job. When you merge with someone like that, you need to be there, you need to be present, not in the middle of a move. So I moved. And then after I moved, I decided this was not the best path for my company. And, just ended up staying. And it's been a great area for us. Made a lot of awesome connections, especially through Women Presidents Organization. I know you had mentioned before the call about Joyce Durst. And so Joyce is in my WPO group and has been just a fantastic mentor for me.
Yeah, she's awesome. She was our 2024 inductee into the brand new Austin Tech Hall of Fame. And she was actually a guest on the podcast, I want to say 3 episodes before this one. So, Joyce
she's fantastic. Learned so much from her.
And she's been such a good friend to the whole tech community, not just the tech council, but the whole tech community, and really has gone out of her way to mentor women and people of color and other people to be able to have opportunities in town. So we love Joyce. I'm glad she's in your group. So how old are your kids now?
The youngest is 29 and the oldest is 35.
Wow. I was doing the math when you talked about when you were doing business with small kids, and I was thinking she's not old enough to have kids as old as I think they would be, but apparently you are. So So let's talk about Austin. So you kind of ended up here by accident, right? You came here because you were going to merge. Business didn't take that path, and you decided to stay. What's great about the Austin tech community? What have you seen in your 8 years here?
Yeah, whenever we need something, I'm always able to find a great resource, whether it's someone to help on the software development side, or just someone to be a mentor or to connect me with the right people when we're talking about funding or whatever it may be. There are a lot of amazing resources there, and I don't think that anyone has ever said no when I've asked for help.
Nice. Is there anything about Austin's future that you think, boy, I think we need to pay attention to this, good or bad? Just when you think about us as a tech ecosystem moving forward, do you have any thoughts about Austin?
Well, I know that there's been a perception of the jobs that are coming from Silicon Valley to Austin were more around kind of the lower end of the spectrum, but I don't believe that that's true. I know it's not anymore. And so I think that it is becoming more like Silicon Valley was 20, 30 years ago. And I'm seeing, these great companies coming in and lots of opportunities. And I just feel like that's only going to continue to make it a wonderful place to do business.
So I always like to ask entrepreneurs like yourself who come on the show, what advice do you have for people who want to, you've grown several businesses. What advice do you have for somebody who is maybe just starting out and they have a vision of what you did with your first company or what you're doing with this company, either the larger scale or the leaner scale? What advice do you have for an entrepreneur?
I think the most important thing that an entrepreneur can be is to have a growth mindset, to be willing to take chances, to learn from those chances. And you have to be resilient. Being an entrepreneur, you have to be a little I don't want to say unstable, but you have to be willing to take chances. Even with this company, someone else would have looked at it and said, no way am I buying this product. There's too many red flags. They spent $2 million last year and they made 200,000. Like, it's not a good business deal, but you have to be able to see that potential and be willing to fight for it and stick with it and learn from your mistakes and just move past those.
So everyone who comes on the show, I ask them this question because my belief is community, collaboration, and conversations can solve all of our problems. I often look at Washington, D.C. and think, I just wish I could have a day with everyone in Congress and make them only act around community, collaboration, and conversations. I think we'd solve all of Washington's problems. Maybe I'm over optimistic, but I really believe that those three things matter. When I say those three words, which one resonates the most with you and why?
Probably collaboration. And because we're in the business of collaboration, so it's something that I lean in on. And you talk about solving Washington's problems. My big thing is if politicians would just accept and recognize that they all have blind spots. None of us have high energy in all four dynamics, which are explore, excite, examine, and execute. So big ideas, getting people on board, creating great plans, and getting things done. And none of us, not a single human on the planet, is high in all of those energies. And so if they could recognize their blind spots and then listen to people who see what they are missing, then we'd be in a whole different place. So it's not about, this person is so forceful in getting things done. Yeah, they're getting things done, but they're not looking at the big picture. They don't understand how this is affecting anything else. They're not listening to anyone else. They're not being collaborative. Or maybe they're just focused on being collaborative, but they're not getting things done. And so, again, I just think there's such a huge opportunity in politics to lean in on other strengths and understand those differences.
I think that the House and the Senate of the United States should have to buy Simplify powered by 5 Dynamics before they try to pass their next bills.
Absolutely.
So final question for you. If you had a friend coming from wherever, an old friend from college, from Maine, coming to visit you in Austin, they'd never been here before, where would you take them? Either a locale or a restaurant or some other attraction that you think shows off Austin the best?
Well, my favorite spot in Austin, is the one that makes me happy every time I go across it, is the Pennybaker Bridge. I just think that is so iconic, Austin. Just the feel of it, the vibe. To me, if you want to get it, that's where you need to go.
It's funny that you say that. I was the marketing director for back in the late 90s, early 2000s for the biggest tech law firm in town, Brobeck, Flager, and Harrison, which was a big San Francisco law firm that had one of the largest Austin footprints for technology law. And our offices were right there at the Pennybacker Bridge. And I don't think I appreciated it at the time that out my window, that was the view. And, I look back going, I was like, I don't know, my early 30s. And I'm like, wow, who knew? Who knew that I had this iconic view? So I also have a special feeling for that place. So, well, Karen Gordon, thank you so much for joining us here on Austin Tech Connect, and thanks for your support of the Austin Technology Council over the years. Any final words?
Just thank you for having me. I appreciated the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're doing and to get to know you better as well. So hopefully I'll see you live soon.
I look forward to that. And thank you to everybody who tuned in and listened. If you weren't listening to the show, why would we do it? But do me a favor, share this episode. You just heard about a company you may or may not have known about in town, and the rest of the people on your team or some of your friends around town probably need to know about Karen and her organization. So share this podcast episode out with all of your friends. And then every week, come back and tune in and listen to our next interviews. And you can go back. We've got like 90 of them in the can going backwards. We've interviewed some really key people here in town. So we'll see you here every single week on Austin Tech Connect.
Thanks for listening to the Austin Tech Connect podcast. Make sure your company is a member of the Austin Technology Council and add your voice to the future of our tech ecosystem in Central Texas.